Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Surcharging versus Cash Discounting, What's Best for Your Business. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day and really want to spend a little bit of time just talking about a very hot topic in our industry really over the last couple of years with surcharging, kind of what we know, what we've seen, as well as some updates from the industry. I want to real quick say thank you to Wisconsin independent businesses for their partnership in putting on this webinar today. And then for those of you that may be repeat attenders from other webinars, you may notice a new logo here. So just a quick note that Wind River Financial, as of later this week, will be going to market as Wind River Payments. So same company, same great people. Really just a little bit of a clarification to the market about what our core business is, and that is processing credit cards. So you may see the new logo there, but again, we appreciate you attending today. Again, Wind River, we're a family-owned business here in Madison, Wisconsin. We've been around for almost 25 years now. Really, our big thing is with customer support and not just supporting our customers on a daily basis with their questions, but also bringing out education to them. And that extends to other businesses in Wisconsin. Credit card processing seems like it should be a very straightforward industry. There's a lot of nooks and crannies and nuances, and we really want to bring that information out to help other small businesses like ourselves here in Wisconsin. So with that being said, my name is Tom Kelly. I'm our strategic partner manager. I've been with Wind River now for 10 years. So I've talked to quite a few merchants in my time here. And I'd say really over the past 2 or 3 years, the topic of surcharging and cash discounting have really come up. So that's why we thought it was appropriate to discuss that today. The agenda that we want to discuss today, we'll kind of break down what are the differences between surcharging and cash discounting. What are the rules around surcharging? Why has surcharging and cash discounting grown in the last few years with merchants? The pros and cons of each, what the consumer reaction has been, and then is surcharging right for your business? So just thought we'd start with just kind of quick definitions of what is surcharging, what is cash discounting. With surcharging, that's going to be a fee that will be added to the total of the sale when a customer is using a credit card to pay for the goods and the services. So if there's $100 sale and they use their credit card, you ring it up, it's $100, a 3% surcharge, you would then add that $3 for a total of $103. Now with surcharging, the card brands have come up with rules, and we're going to touch on what those rules are and what the impacts of breaking those rules are on the next slide. As far as cash discounting, this is where you're going to incentivize your customers to pay with cash versus a credit card by offering a small discount when they pay with cash. So in that example of that $100 sale, in cash discounting, you would have raised all of your prices by, let's say, 3%. So that $100 order or $100 sale would have been marked as 103 on the shelf. When the customer then comes to pay and they pay with cash, you would lower it by 3% or $3, and they would pay you with $100 of cash. There are still a few rules with cash discounting, but much less, a lot easier to understand than the surcharging rules. Also, something that we're seeing in the market is really kind of a variation of both of these. We've gotten some clarification from Visa. It's really something that is against the rules, something called dual pricing, where you advertise a cash price, but then would charge a credit card price at the register. That is really a surcharging program and one that Visa really frowns upon. So if you're getting calls or hearing about dual pricing, that's one that I would definitely stay away from. It makes things a lot more confusing, and again is really against the rules that Visa has today. So about those rules, what are the rules to surcharging? With surcharging, one question that we always get is surcharging illegal? Can we do that here in Wisconsin? And the answer is yes. You are able to pass along a credit card surcharge to your customers. Really, I think it's about 45 states where it is legal that you can do that. Most of those states are on the East Coast where you're not able to do that. So really here in the Midwest, surcharging is something that you are allowed to do for your business, as long as you follow the rules that Visa, MasterCard, and Discover have outlined. So really you can only surcharge enough to cover the cost of your fees. Now, what's happened within the last couple of years is processors have kind of gotten a little sneaky with how they do that, where let's say a business was paying 2.75% all in for their credit card processing. A lot of credit card processors were then offering quote unquote free credit card processing and then passing along a 3.99 or 4% surcharge to the customers. We might say, what happens to that extra 1.25% margin in there? Well, the processors were keeping that margin for themselves, which one was in a very gray area, whether that was legal or not for them to do. But two, that is really kind of forced Visa to say, this isn't in the spirit of why surcharging exists. And because of that, the max surcharge has actually gone from 4% down to 3% as of April of this year. So today we are still seeing in the market a lot of folks that are unknowingly surcharging 3.5%, not knowing that has been lowered. Their processor hasn't communicated that. We are still seeing some processors even pitching the 3.5%, 4% programs as a way to kind of continue to build that margin. At the end of the day, if you as a business breaks the rules, whether your processor told you or not, it falls on the business and not the processor as who's going to kind of fall on the sword for that. So who's going to be financially impacted. So again, at Wind River, we just want to be very crystal clear about what the rules are. We want to help our customers do things the right way and stay out of Visa's doghouse. Another thing that we see in the market is quite a few folks are surcharging debit cards. Surcharging debit cards is not allowed. A lot of times in these kind of quote unquote free credit card processing programs, in order to make the math work for the processor, they're telling you to surcharge debit cards. At Wind River, many of our solutions will not even allow you to pass that surcharge on a debit card. And that is just because Visa is becoming much more aggressive with the enforcement on that. And again, really want to help you do things the right way. Now, there's a couple ways that you can tell if it's a debit card. Really, the most basic way is to look at the card itself. And this obviously only applies in a card present scenario, but it will say debit on the bottom. With the Wind River terminals, the way that we have it set up, it will check the BIN number or the first 6 digits of that credit card number. It will identify that that is a debit card and it will not add. So that's an automatic process, but historically it's really been a manual process for you or your staff to identify a debit card and not pass that surcharge along. Other rules, there must be display signage when you enter the business as well as at the point of payment or at the register. That surcharge needs to be broken out as a separate line item and it must be a percentage. So you can't say, okay, my surcharge is going to be $1. It needs to be 1, 2, 3% or some variation between 0 and 3%. If you're going to surcharge one, you need to surcharge all. So there's no saying anything under $500 or less won't get a surcharge, or I'm going to surcharge this customer, but not the other. Visa makes it very clear that if you are going to surcharge, you need to surcharge on all dollar amounts or on all customers. Sometimes we get questions, can I set a minimum? So let's say to be $10 or over, you have to pay, if it's $10 or over for credit cards or anything under $10, you can't pay with credit cards. That is separate from surcharging, but that is something you're allowed to do, is to set a floor on what a customer can spend on credit cards. So that is something that a question that does come up occasionally when talking about surcharge one, surcharge all. You must be registered with the card brands before surcharging. That is something that your processor should be able to help you do. Really just kind of Visa's way of making sure they know who's doing it and who's not. And then the non-compliance of rules can result in fines. Had a colleague of ours that recently just attended an industry trade show. The head of Visa's rules team was there and kind of spoke to the group. Today, it sounds like if Visa finds out that you're doing things incorrectly, it's an immediate $1,000 fine to the business. Non-compliance from there tends to go up in $5,000 increments. So if you continue to do things the wrong way, those fines will then come from the card brands. Now, how can a business be reported? The card brands do have ways where an upset customer can go to their website and report a business for improperly surcharging. I'd say that's probably the most common way that businesses are reported today. Also attending the show, my colleague mentioned that they had talked about Visa's really upping their secret shopper enforcement or team, where they're sending out folks into the market, making purchases, going in and seeing, is this merchant surcharging correctly? Are they 3% or under? Are they surcharging on debit cards? As well as they're auditing both processors like the Wind Rivers of the world and merchants. An interesting stat is of those audits, there's about a 35% failure rate. So as you can see, about 1 in 3 merchants isn't doing things correctly today. And that's really where Visa stressed again at this conference that it's something that they're starting to enforce more as things move forward. So what is the appeal of surcharging and cash discounting? I think surcharging has been around for a while, but I think really with COVID, I think it really started in the restaurant business, where a lot of our local restaurants were hit very hard with the lockdowns, the shutdowns, and they said we need to cover as many costs as we can. And I think a lot of people were, hey, we want to support our local restaurants, we want to support these local businesses, we're okay paying this additional fee. And that's where I think a lot of then these other credit card processors came in and kind of eyes got big and said, hey, we can increase our margin by pushing surcharging. And I think that's kind of what has happened. A lot of times we hear the kind of quote unquote free credit card processing. But again, not being able to surcharge debit cards. If your credit card to debit card mix is 80 to 20, you may be able to offset all those fees. If your debit card mix is higher than 20%, you may not be able to offset all of your fees, even with a 3% surcharge. So that's what, again, why a lot of these processors are pushing these programs, telling you to surcharge debit cards. They're making the margin, you're taking the risk. So I think that's really the appeal, though. It's costs are going up across the board in everyday life. So what can you offset or what can you cover? I think that's really the appeal. And that's really what's being pushed when it comes to surcharging and cash discounting. So as far as surcharging, the pros, like we talked about, it's reducing or eliminating those processing fees. Now I've talked to some merchants that are paying 5, 6, 7, 8% because of their processor raising fees on them. And they say, I'm paying 8%, I've got to offset some of this somehow. Well, absolutely. In that case, you got to lower the fees and offset some of those card brand fees. So it is reducing the processing fee, I think, is the biggest kind of reaction or the biggest sentiment that we hear from businesses when talking about surcharging or answering their questions on surcharging. Some of the negatives, it can lead to some customer dissatisfaction. Have a slide with some stats on kind of some recent surveys in our industry. How do consumers feel about surcharging? Again, we walked through that whole list of rules on that slide earlier. With surcharging, the rules can be a little bit tricky to navigate, making sure you're not surcharging debit cards. If you have a large staff that's accepting credit cards or a turnover in staff, making sure that you not only get them up to speed on everything else you need to for the business, but making sure they're aware of the no surcharge on debit cards. With surcharging, the way it's set up is you're going to pay tax on the total sale, including that surcharge. And then a negative impact on total sales or the size of the sales. And we'll touch a little bit on that on a couple slides here. As far as cash discounting, I think really kind of the same thing. It's a way to recoup the credit card processing fees or build those in when you're taking a credit card. While there are still some rules that you need to play by, there's going to be fewer, easier to understand rules when it comes to cash discounting. And I think from an optic standpoint, anytime you can offer your customer a discount as opposed to showing them an additional fee, really that example earlier where it's $100 sale, you add 3% on, you're adding that fee to the customer. Or if you say it's 103, but I'll give you a discount if you pay with cash, that's just going to make the customer feel a little bit warm and fuzzy. really accomplishes the same thing, but just sounds better optically to that customer. And then the cons. Many customers do not carry cash, myself included. Um, just an example, if you walk into a bar, you got a $20 bill in your wallet, you're going to say, okay, this many drinks will fit into $20. That's what I'm getting. But if you can put your card down, you're going to buy your buddy next to you a beer. So that's, I think, kind of the cons of the cash discounting. Another con, you need to raise your prices to build that margin in. Some industries say, hey, it's got to be $99.99. I can't raise it to $102.99. So for some businesses, that can be a negative with cash discounting. The signage can be confusing. Wait, am I eligible? Am I not eligible? If I pay with a debit card, there can be some confusion there. And then it's on the business to remove that markup at the point of sale. Some solutions do have that built in where they pay with cash and it's going to reduce that fee, but some do not. And then at that point, it's on the associate to then do the math, and is the math done correctly, or all of that. What about customer reaction? As part of what we do, we just kind of monitor what's going on in the industry as we attend some of these conferences. What are we hearing? I think so many times when we talk to merchants, the sales pitch that they're getting around surcharging is all about free processing, cover your fees, cover your fees. And a lot of times the customer reaction or what the data suggests consumers feel like isn't brought up in the conversation. And we think that's important too. At the end of the day, you need to do what's best for your business. We understand that. We're going to support that. But we just want to share what we know too from some of the studies we've read and what we've learned at some conferences. So I think really number one, customers have strong reactions to businesses that are implementing surcharging. The biggest thing, 92% of folks just want people to be transparent. I think the worst thing that can happen is surprising someone at the checkout with an additional fee. I think especially if you're an e-commerce business, it's very easy to close that shopping cart and go somewhere else where there's not going to be that additional fee. So just being transparent with your customers, that's the biggest thing. 60% of cardholders just don't agree with surcharging. They don't want to be added that extra fee. So that was a big stat that kind of stood out to me. As far as, what's going to happen if you start adding a surcharge, 73% of cardholders said they aren't going to use their credit card as much if they have to pay with a surcharge. Now, some of those are going to move to cash or check. Some of them just may not purchase that extra item if from a business that's going to add that surcharge. And then 17% of shoppers said they're going to stop surcharging at a merchant who surcharges. So just some areas where you're going to cover your fees by adding that surcharge. But again, are you going to push some of your customers out the door and have them not return if you do? Kind of on that point earlier, 78% of customers feel it's unfair to be charged extra because of their desired payment method. And then I think something that's interesting, just when looking at all sales, cash versus credit card, a credit card sale tends to be about twice as high as those sales done on cash. So as far as, is surcharging right for your business? Like I said, in my 10 years here, I've talked to businesses all throughout the country, all different types. Each business's kind of need for surcharging or the way that surcharging will work is going to be unique. So really the best thing to do is kind of weigh the pros and cons for your business. What's going to make the most sense? Is it going to help my business? Is it going to hurt my business? As of 2022, about 1 in 3 businesses in America were surcharging. So I'd say that number has significantly grown as we were talking about kind of post-COVID era. When I started, I was having maybe 1 or 2 conversations a month on surcharging. Now where it seems like we're having 1 or 2 a day. So it's really picked up. More folks are doing it. But again, Visa is really kind of clamping down and making sure folks are doing it correctly. What is your competition doing? I think this is a big thing. Whether it's another business in town, Are they surcharging? Are they not? But also what is online? If you're selling a good or a service that can be purchased online, um, you know, from a big box retailer that may offer free shipping and maybe a little bit less. If your customer doesn't buy something and goes home, are you losing that sale? Um, what's the ticket size of the business? I think, adding a 3% surcharge to a $20 lunch order is a lot different conversation than if you're selling a big ticket item like a hot tub per se. Adding 3% to a $10,000 purchase, again, that can really leave a bad taste in the mouth and maybe cause a customer to shop elsewhere. Depending on how you're surcharging, the way that Wind River does it is, let's say you do surcharge 3%. We would then fund on that $100 sale, we'd fund the $100, the $3 on the surcharge for a total of 103. And then we take the fees out at the end of the month. So you're still being charged fees. They're being offset by that surcharge you collect earlier in the month. You can then write that off as a business expense. My apologies here. With some of these free programs, you are not able to write that off because you're not being charged fees. They're just being taken out of your daily deposit. So that's something to think of as well. The financial impacts of non-compliance. And then again, that first stat that we touched on, just being transparent with your customers is important. Being upfront with them. I think another thing that we've heard in talking with businesses is if there's an angry customer asking an associate, why am I being charged this extra fee? Just giving your team the information that they need to know to answer those questions. I think that can really set a positive tone. As opposed to, I'm not sure why we charge it. Anytime your associates can answer, this is why we're doing it. This is why we've decided to do it. That's going to be a better approach than kind of leaving them out there to not know how to answer those questions. So I'd say with that, are there any questions from the group today? And if you don't feel comfortable asking in the group setting, obviously I'll include my contact information here on the next slide, but I just thought I'd open it up to the group to see if there are any questions. One question we have here is a convenience fee the same as a surcharge? So convenience fees are a little bit different. They're kind of a different beast altogether. A convenience fee can be added if it is a new line of acceptance that you have for your customers. So for example, if you're adding a pay here button on your website, you could add a convenience fee. That needs to be a set dollar amount. That cannot be a percentage. There are some different rules for some government entities. For example, if you go to buy your fishing license from the state of Wisconsin, they charge a convenience fee. But again, that needs to be a set dollar amount and cannot be a percentage. And then how to best go about contacting Visa American Express regarding their surcharge process. I would say if it is a question about your business and how you can surcharge, I'd say it'd be very difficult to probably get a hold of Visa American Express about questions. I'd say that would probably be best answered by your processor or again, Wind River would be happy to answer some of those questions for you. If it is kind of about changing their minds, things like that, I'd say reaching out to them directly would probably be the approach there. So hopefully I answered that correctly. If not, happy to connect offline there. Another question, does cash discount apply to debit cards, and what is the legal amount you can cash discount? So you can really, with the cash discounting, you can set that up where you're going to give them that discount on debit cards if you'd like. The interchange rates of the card brand fees are significantly less on debit cards as opposed to credit cards. And really that cash discount amount is up to you. A lot of folks do 3%. I've seen some folks do 5%. really, I think it kind of depends on what you're building in to your price to kind of take out, if that makes sense. So really the big thing with cash discounting is you need to advertise that price that you're going to charge a customer if they pay with credit card. And then really it's up to you on what that amount is that you want to discount out from there. And then with that, I do not see any other questions. And like I said, if any other questions do pop up or you have a certain scenario that you'd like to discuss, I'm happy to do that. With you, here's my contact information. I know we will be also sending out a recording of this webinar in case you jumped on late and want to watch the whole thing. That will come out by the end of this week. But again, this is my direct phone line. Here's my email address. If you would like to reach out to me or have any questions, not just about surcharging, cash discounting, like we talked about, there's a lot of change going on in my 10 years. So there's more change going on right now in our industry than there has been ever before with mergers and acquisitions and added fees. I know we've done some webinars around that, but any questions you have on your payments program, we're happy to be a local resource and get you the answer or find out the answer if we don't know it. That being said, I got another question here. Just wanted to answer while we're still on. In your experience, have credit card processors been willing to lower their fees if a large dollar, I'm guessing, ticket? I'd say it goes down the path of if it's a business to business transaction, some business to business cards do have we'll call it enhanced business rates, where some cards qualify for lower interchange rates. So if you're passing along that data, you can lower those card brand fees. I would say at Wind River, our approach is really it's a volume driven business. If our customers are growing, we're actually going to lower their overall assessment, or can potentially lower that overall assessment. But I'd say a lot of times what happens in our industry is you sign up at a low rate and it goes up and up and up. So if things are changing in your business, it may be worth reaching out to your current processor or talking with other processors just to see if fees will be different elsewhere. And with that, I think that was the last question that we have. So again, I really appreciate you taking the time to attend today. And like I said, if I can be a resource or answer any questions for you, please let me know. And with that, I hope it's sunny where you guys are at as well. It's sunny here in Madison. So enjoy the rest of your day and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.